Are my children going to be okay? That is a common question for a lot of parents when navigating divorce. And when asked that question, I want to be clear that's not a surface level question when parents ask that question, because behind that question carries a lot of guilt, uncertainty, and deep love all at once. And you wonder if the breakdown of your relationship will somehow break your children, or if this experience will leave lasting emotional damage. Because as I tell people, when family dynamics shift, so does everything else. Their day to day routines are altered, living arrangements change, time has to be split, birthdays and holidays got to be shared. They might have to even adjust to a new school or split time between homes and follow different sets of rules in those homes, or even learn to accept a new partner in their parents' life. And you also have those that may be left to carry the entire parental load alone. And on top of that, there's the stigma. When we talk about divorce, 40 to 50% of marriages in the US end in divorce. And then when it comes to single parent households, 80% of those are led by mothers. However, those numbers really just don't tell a story. They often carry judgment, reinforcing the belief that children from families like these are automatically at a disadvantage and they come from broken homes. But is that really the truth, though? Is that the absolute full truth? Because what I've come to believe is this: while divorce does bring change, it's not the event itself that defines a child's outcome. It's the way we choose to parent through it, after it, and in every moment that follows. And so, what does it look like to show up intentionally for our children, even when everything around us feels uncertain? How do we create space for them to process their emotions intelligently, ask the hard questions without fear, and feel seen and safe? And how do we as parents navigate all the layers that comes with this while still being grounded enough to lead our children well? And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring a guest that I have been following her on these social media streets for about a couple of years. And her approach to parenting is very unique, very refreshing. I would definitely say it has challenged me. And I think we need to hear more of this. And I wanted to bring somebody who is doing an amazing job in this space. And my guest for today is Destini Ann. Destini Ann is a parenting coach. She's a speaker, she's an author, and she helps families from surviving to thriving using tools rooted in emotional intelligence and real life compassion. She studied psychology at Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and began her career working in schools. But it wasn't until she became a mom that everything really clicked. Parenting cracked her wide open. The stress, the yelling, the guilt, it all pushed her to find a better way. And that search led her to the Jai Institute for Parenting, where she became a certified parenting coach and learned tools that helped her show up with more calm, clarity, and connection. And now she shares those tools with other parents who are trying to break cycles and do things differently. Destiny's been featured on Momsplaining with Kristen Bell, Ellen's Bubble, and gave a TEDx talk on how labels impact our children's self image. She's the author of Very Intentional Parenting and is currently studying social emotional learning at National University to deepen her work with schools and communities. Whether she's talking to one parent or in a packed room, Destiny leads with this truth: we don't need to be perfect. We just need to be present. And so, without further ado, Destiny Ann. Girl, I am
I'm
so glad you
so
accepted my
I'm
invitation.
excited, girl. I am so excited. I just appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the intention of this conversation. It is a conversation I wish that I would have been able to hear and be a part of. And I wish that I had your platform when I was going through my divorce. So I'm very, very grateful to be here.
Yes, and I'm so grateful to have you. And I would love to ask you a quick question before we dive in, because I've been following you for a while and you've been doing some great things. Seeing your beautiful children, you're in school now. I see you also have a show that you're on that we're going to talk about. And it made me want to ask you, what's something that's been bringing you peace and joy in this current season of your life?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm being very, very intentional about my peace in this season. School will do it to you.
Mhm.
Because you don't have a choice. I'm like, it has to be peaceful, or I'm not gonna be able to turn these assignments in. Um, Waking up early is bringing me so much peace.
Really?
Yes, I have been
I love
waking up
that.
at 5 a.m. and
Mm.
I can't stand it for like the first 15 minutes. But the feeling I have going to bed in this season
Mhm.
versus previously is significantly different. It really is. I feel so much ease and so much peace going to bed. One, because my to-do list is actually a to-done list. I'm actually, the extra time does give me time to get my to-do list done. So
Yeah,
it's not sitting on me, but also the things that I'm able to do in the morning are just
I
very
love that.
medicinal to my spirit and my peace. And so, yeah, thank
I
you.
love that. I love that. Getting up in the morning is a game changer because everybody's quiet. Nobody's bothering you. Like, you need that time. It's I love it. I
This is single.
absolutely love it.
What? Because as soon as if you're waking up when they're waking up, you genuinely don't have any time to yourself, but you genuinely don't get to experience not being on. And I think one of the biggest challenges when it comes to parenting and regulation is the lack of autonomy. And that is a basic human need. And so if there's no place and space for us to just say no or yes to exactly what we want to do, we eventually hit a wall.
Yep, sure do. I totally agree. I love that. I was watching your interview on the Tamron Hall show. I was like, okay, I loved it. I watched it. I literally watched it yesterday. I wanted to
Oh, that's
to
so
to
cool.
watch it, and it was something that you mentioned. You said I had a good childhood, but there were just some things that you felt like wasn't aligned with your values, specifically maybe to how parenting was approached. And what didn't like align for you that you didn't want to necessarily duplicate
Yeah,
in your own parenting journey?
a few things. I mean, some of those things were just outright traumatic in terms of spanking and, those kind of physical things. But then
Mhm.
there were also subtle things like shame, intentional embarrassment, not taking accountability was a big one. And those things I realized just really went against my values as a
Yeah.
parent, and I did not
Mhm.
want to repeat them. Some of those things are a journey, and I have to take the programming out and be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Other ones, like spanking and yelling, are like a hard no for me. But definitely the majority of the things were around hierarchy and not
Yeah.
being like equal in our humanity. And that's a hard thing to balance. It's very difficult to balance equity in a relationship that is just naturally has a hierarchy. We're bigger, our brains are more developed, we have more rights. And so it is difficult to balance that. But that way of parenting is more in alignment with my values for sure.
No, that's good. How many children do you have?
I have two little girls, 7 and
Mm.
12.
Ooh, that youngest one. I've seen some of them videos.
She is
Sh
hurt. She lived her life. Listen, she is frolicking through life. Okay, she's not a care in the world.
Yeah, she got your whole face.
She
What does she
does
look like? She
copy and
got your
paste.
entire copy and paste. And so, this new parenting approach that you chose to adopt, more conscious, more gentle, more peaceful, more intentional, more proactive. How would you define that? Like, what does that really look like in practice? Because, when people say these words, I think people have misunderstandings around them. So, could you define like what that means and what that looks like for you?
I think that it's about emotional intelligence. And so,
Yeah.
really, it is understanding my feelings and needs and
Hmm.
desires as an individual, understanding my kids' feelings, needs, and desires as an individual, and being collaborative in our home and
Yeah.
creating the culture of our home, making sure that everybody's needs and feelings are valued. And sometimes somebody's are prioritized versus the other. But if you look at the totality of the home, it should be equitable.
Mm, I love that. So with this approach that you've adopted, were you like that when you had your small child, or did you just learn? Did you find yourself kind of unconsciously inheriting what you've been taught, and that's what you was doing initially, and then you was like, "Nah, I got to be a better way."
Oh, no, 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 no. When people say, like, that's white people stuff, that's what I was doing. That's what I was doing. I
Okay.
was very that was I was very permissive because I had so
Yeah.
much trauma and I had so much damage, and I went into it like, "I'm not gonna do these things." I was very clear on what I was not going to do, and that, translated into, "I'm not gonna discipline." Like, there's gonna be no discipline. We just gonna be besties. My goal and role here is to make sure you're happy because I was not happy as a child. And that backfired terribly. That backfired horribly in her confidence, in her regulation, in her own discipline.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I started this journey of wait, the opposite of, you know, unhealthy isn't always healthy. Like that could
Yeah.
just be another version of unhealthy.
Yeah.
And so no, I did not start out my oldest this way at all. I was very permissive. And so um I was permissive, and then there was also a divorce, and she's had like adverse experiences. And so I had to be very intentional and, to your point, proactive about repair, about self-healing, about being intentional with growing my own discipline and figuring out how to navigate that with her. And that's kind of what led me to this path.
Mm. And so you said permissive. So what do you think gets most misunderstood about the style you're talking about? Like when we say gentle parenting, being more intentional. I think a lot of the time people confuse that with permissive, actually, when you say things like gentle parenting. Like they're just running the show and they're just disrespectful and there's no boundaries and they just do what they want to do. Like, like, what is your view about that? And what do people need to understand in
I
terms
think
of that?
I think that when inconvenient behaviors aren't shut down immediately, that's perceived as permissive. So if the
Gotcha.
child talked back and I didn't lead with correction or who you talking to, or if I didn't lead with that, with the corrective action, then that is seen as permissive. So if I am making a video on Instagram and I'm sharing that, it's okay to look at the feelings beneath the behavior. Like if
Yeah.
you start there, a lot of times when you or when you bring in the correction, excuse me, it lands better, right? If I say that, sometimes that last part falls on deaf ears, and it's just,
Hmm.
oh, you're just ignoring the behavior. So I think that that's where the confusion is. A lot of times, it's in the when I'm correcting behavior, because for
Hmm.
me, correction in behavior is about consistently day to day what I'm modeling, which a lot of times is not necessarily seen. A lot of times, it's do as I say and not as I do, which
Basically,
is
yeah.
confusing for a developing brain because where am I supposed to actually be learning this from, right? And so it should be in what I'm modeling. And then it's also in the communications and the direct conversations I have with my child outside of a dysregulated moment. A lot of times, parents, especially more authoritarian parents that are not necessarily into gentle parenting or whatever, a lot of times they're like, no, it needs to happen during. When they are mad, that's when you tell them to fix their face. That's when you tell them how to talk to you. And whether or not that is good or bad, I'm not here to argue that. What I know is that it's, number one, not in alignment with my values. It's not in alignment with brain development, but it's also not effective for a lot of children and for a lot of people just in general. So I would prefer to do what is effective, and it ain't that.
No, I love that because one of the things you said autonomy, you know, and that means no matter if it's the child or the adult, because it was in a video you said when it comes to that parent-child relationship, that is like one of the only relationships where it's expected for one party to have a voice.
Mhm.
And when you said that, I was like, wow, I love that. And that's actually very true because I grew up the same way. Do as I say, not as I do. A child is to be seen, not heard. It wouldn't know, well, how do you feel? Like, what is
Yeah.
your intake? What's your take on it? Like, that was not, how I grew up, and I kinda copied and pasted that same type of mentality unconsciously, even though I hated it as a child. It's like I did
Mhm.
exactly what I didn't like, and I had to unlearn a lot of things. Why do you think that is? Is it just the hierarchy? Is it just because I'm the adult, you're the child? Unhealthy programming that we just don't wanna allow ourselves to learn something new? Where do you feel like parents kind of fall short in that and giving their kids that level of autonomy? And how does that even impact them growing up?
Because parenting is easier when there's a hierarchy. It's
Yeah.
easier. Like,
Mm.
that's the part that I can empathize with, is that if it's because I said so, then there are days where I'm like, dang, I wish I could just give you a look and you wouldn't be splashing that water out of this. There are days I'm like, if you was just scared of me, none of this would be happening right now. So I assume that that's one of the reasons, is that it is significantly easier. It's not as inconvenient.
Yeah.
I think maybe the other reason is probably because most of us haven't actually experienced that level of patience ourselves. And so we haven't actually gotten to see the impact of that level of trust, that level of patience, and the care, like what it feels like for somebody to recognize us in our mess
Mhm.
beneath it and respond and give us the space to choose differently. A lot of us haven't had that experience or opportunity. And so we'll, go off on somebody or have an attitude, our moments of dysregulation as adults, right?
Yep.
And if somebody responds to just the behavior, we don't receive it. We're not open to learning or hearing their perspective, right? We're caught in a power struggle. But if somebody pauses and responds to the feeling or the emotion, somebody we're close to in an intimate relationship or something, a lot of us have at least that one person that is like, I see you and know who you genuinely are. And I know this is a moment and I'm going to speak beneath that behavior. Some of us don't. I have that person in my life. And so I know what that feels like. And there's a different level of intimacy there and connection and trust there, right? I trust
Yeah.
that person's word. I trust their efforts and their coaching and the things that they're trying to get me to see. And I think that when we invite that into the relationship with our children, they trust us. We don't take away the trust that they have in themselves as well, the trust that they
That's
have
a
in their
that's
environment.
good.
That may be why I just don't think that a lot of us have gotten to experience somebody having that level of patience with us.
No, that's real good. So what does accountability and discipline look like with intentional parenting? And the reason why I'm saying that is because, you know, again, it's not the do as I say, not as I do. It's not the spankings, the things that a lot of people are probably just used to. And so when you say things like gentle parenting, intentional parenting, there's again absence of firmness, absence of boundaries or follow through, which I don't get that vibe from you, like at all. So, what does accountability and discipline look like? Where you're honoring your child's voice, but also feeling respected as a parent too.
Yeah. I think that one of the best quotes that I heard, I can't remember where I heard it from, was, we are our child's frontal lobe right now. So boundaries are so important. When it comes to boundaries, though, number one, they need to be proactive. If I see a parent that has a lot of issues with their child and is consistently like punishing or yelling or something, a lot of times they don't have really good boundaries. They just got really good rules. But boundaries
Mm,
are things that are in place where our children don't have to do anything. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to do anything to respect the rules. So if a child has free reign on their phone and there are no boundaries, then there probably are going to be a lot of punishments and issues around the
yeah.
device, because brain development, they're not ready for that level of access. So for me, boundaries are proactive. They are what I am and am not willing to do as a parent. I'm not willing to stop at 7-Eleven and get you some candy because it's 6 p.m. and I know what happens if you have sugar.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
that's what leadership for me is proactive. Boundaries are proactive. Now, if we get into a situation where there is a behavior or something has happened outside of a boundary, it's my goal and intention to be compassionate with my response, to be collaborative in my response, and to not be overly punitive in my response.
Mhm. That's good. That's good. So I love that you said boundaries are not rules. Um,
They're
that's
not.
good. They're not the same.
They're not your thing. Listen, that conversation comes up a lot with adults, I'm sure, and in relationships. And that's the confusion because at the end of the day, I'm in charge of me. Parents don't like when I say this, but you can't safely make your child do anything. At the end of the day, when they do something, they chose to. They may have chose to because of your influence, but at the end of the day, we are all autonomous beings. You cannot force food down a child's throat safely. They have to choose it, whether or not you coerce them or whatever. At the end of the day, we are all autonomous beings. They are in control of themselves. I'm in control of me. And as the leader, it is my responsibility to instill my values. It's my responsibility to set up the environment where they make the obvious choice. The good choice is the obvious choice.
Yeah.
But a lot of times parents will lead with rules. And then
Yeah.
when we run into the wall of, oh, this is an autonomous being,
Mm-hmm.
what are they going to do? They're like, I'm just going to increase the control. I'm going to make it so the only option right now is to force you to do this in this moment. And so when we have more boundaries, a lot of times we have less consequences, we have less punishments, we have less reactions as parents.
Mm. No, that's good. It was something you said that I was like, wow, this was definitely new. But I love the approach because you said that you taught your children how to respectfully tell you about yourself.
Tell me
You
that
know, um, oh my goodness. Why was that important for you to foster?
because I believe that being able to assert yourself is so important. And I want my children to practice that at
Yeah.
home. I want my children to know what that looks like so that they're not questioning their voice. And if they're, I said that assertively and with emotional intelligence and respectfully, and is not being received, then that means there's a lack of safety in the environment. And I don't want you to make yourself feel small. And so there's certain things we want our kids to be able to do when they're adults, but we don't want them to practice them on us.
Mm. That is now that's true because my daughter, she's like, I've really taught her the importance of honoring her voice. But honey, when it's used to me, I be like, look, mad and happy at the same time.
Right, exactly. Well, it is hard. It's hard.
Man, like, shoot, but I taught her. You know what I mean? Because I see how a lot of adults shy away
Mhm.
from being radically honest.
Mhm.
We talk about that, but if we're not teaching them that at a young age, how are they going to do that as an adult? So,
It gets sticky though sometimes, and it gets uncomfortable, and
mhm.
it doesn't mean that it can't have an impact on us. I think it's the way that we reflect that back to them, because there will be times where I'm like, whoa, that was too much. And I have to pause and
Yeah,
own my stuff. Well, no, that was too much for me. And when you're in a relationship with somebody, it's okay to let them know I didn't appreciate that. I don't prefer to be spoken to that way. I want my children to be able to navigate relationships, not to think that this is the right way to do this and that. No, I want you to be able to navigate and take feedback. And when you care about somebody, you collaborate on how you respond to that feedback. So yeah, it's not just, oh, you can say whatever you can express. And I'm just like, all right, fine,
yeah,
I'll take it. Sometimes I'm like, no, that's a bit too much for me. I would prefer this. And I think that it's important, like both. Both are important. They should be able to express themselves, and we should be able to express ourselves a
no, that's
certain
good.
way to them back as well.
No, I love that. I think that's good, and especially like you said, being able to manage relationships. I think we're just in a cancel culture, and this cut everybody off because I don't like what you say. I just think, and now they say this is the most loneliest generation. I
Yes,
said, I wonder
that's
why.
true.
We have more tools to connect than I've ever seen, but yet we're the most lonely people. Is it because one of the things is how we cut people off and not have we haven't learned the art of relational management? So I really love that. I want to kind of pivot a little bit about helping our children gain better, excuse me, gain better awareness of their emotions and learning how to manage them intelligently. Like, okay, so when I was writing out this question, I couldn't help but think back when my kid's father and I separated. Now, I've been divorced for a long time, but I didn't initially take my healing journey until 5 years post-divorce because, girl, I didn't even know it bothered me. You know what I mean? To be honest. Um, I wasn't but back then, I wasn't fully aware of my emotions. I was very logistical, legal decisions, financial concerns, him moving on with somebody else, I lost my job. And then there was the pretending that I was good at. I was a pretender. I tell everybody
Mm.
I mastered the art of masking, you know, being okay, being strong. Like I wore that well. I wore
Did
it
you
with a
know you
badge
were
of honor.
masking?
Not then.
Okay, I got
Or I would say this. Let me be honest. I probably knew, but admitting,
Mhm.
because me, a woman like me, I got emotions. Like sometimes accepting that hard truth that I can be like that may have been true as well. But I just wasn't in that space of evolving like I am now, right? Um, but being that way kept me from acknowledging how I was feeling. And then it also kept me from seeing like what my children may have been carrying too. So like my son at that time was 5, my daughter was 1. Um, Probably more so my son than anything, because he was 5 at the time. Not saying it didn't have an impact on her, but I know she was 1, but developmentally, there was a huge difference. And I couldn't see it, or maybe I couldn't see it because of where I was emotionally. Um, and here's the truth. When I think about that, I think about a lot of people in that space where you really do want your kids to be okay. Because even in that space, it wasn't that I didn't want them to be okay. That wasn't the opposite. Um, but it was also easy to unintentionally overlook what they could be holding inside, especially when you're overwhelmed yourself,
Yeah.
right? And so the parent who's listening right now and realizing, like, wow, I've been so caught up in surviving that I haven't really had space to focus on how my child is processing all of this. How can they start supporting their child's emotional awareness now?
Well, that's definitely different at every age and stage. I think that when
Hmm.
they're younger, it's important to, like, first, just emotional labeling and giving them a lot of opportunities to say their emotions and label their emotions. I am always surprised when I work with clients how limited our emotional vocabulary is.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Happy, sad,
Sad,
and angry.
mad, glad.
Happy,
Yeah.
sad, and mad is right,
Hmm.
exactly. But
Yeah.
to start those conversations and make it more comfortable to talk about emotions, it is important for us to actively, same way we teach our kids ABCs, how to tie their shoes, we should teach our children emotions. We should be checking in outside of just talking about divorce or talking about when something's happening. Just checking in with mood charts or with mood wheels or with pictures if they're smaller, and teaching them different emotions, teaching them how to say I'm bored, teaching them how to say I feel jealous, like teaching them the emotion when they're processing an experience. I'll give you an example. The other day, my 7-year-old was like, my friend, um, and I were doing phonics in class, and I'm really good at doing something. And then when he does it, he has to stand up and point at the board, and he's all loud, and he doesn't let everybody else talk. And he's just a lot better at it than everybody else. Right. And so we could just talk about what's going on the surface. We just talk about the situation. But I'm labeling that for her. Well, how did it make you feel when that was happening? I don't know. I didn't want to tell him that he was doing anything wrong because he was right, but it just made me feel weird. And I'd say, well, that kind of sounds like envy a little bit. That sounds like jealousy a little bit. We all feel that sometimes. It's what
Hmm.
we do with that feeling, right? And so being able to label and mirror potentially what might be happening for a child, giving them that language is really important because
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I would much prefer somebody to be able to say, hey, I'm feeling a little bit jealous right now versus doing something passive aggressive to me.
Right. Yeah.
My adult life,
Hmm.
like you could have
Yeah.
just told me that what I did made you feel small. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
No, you're
think that
right.
starting with giving them language, noticing when there might be an emotion going on is really important. And then when they get older, having deeper conversations and asking them deeper questions about how is this impacting you is really important in being able to just hold space for those emotions without needing to fix it. That's the challenging part, right?
Mm.
Especially going through
Oh,
a divorce because
100%.
you feel guilty. You feel like it's your fault. Whatever they're feeling, you feel like it's your fault. And recognizing that in this moment is more about helping them process the feeling than it is about setting up the circumstances to where they don't feel.
if you're here, most likely you're either thinking about a divorce, going through one, you're already divorced, or even transitioning out of a non-marital relationship. However, no matter where you are on the spectrum of that journey, one of the biggest misconceptions is how disruptive this experience can be. And here's the thing, even if it was the best choice, it doesn't mean that it hurts less. And you don't have to pretend to be okay. Neither do you have to be strong about what you're going through, because the truth of the matter is that it impacts you. It can impact you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, legally, relationally, and even professionally. And because of that, it is crucial to act accordingly. And so, what does this mean? This means that it is very important for you to be intentional about your next chapter going forward. And a huge part of that is recovering on purpose. And to help with that, I created a free audio guide that outlines 7 healthy ways to help you through this transition. And to access your free copy of that audio guide, then please head over to my website, tanyacarter.com/turning the page. Okay, that's tanyacarter.com/turning the page. And I will put a link down in the show notes. Oh, that's good. I love that. Because you don't want to see your kids hurt, so you'll do anything to avoid it, like maybe
Which is nasty.
overcompensating. Yeah, overcompensating, just doing the absolute most, even though none of that would never even take away from how they feel anyway. I love that. One of the things that I want to touch on a little bit, because let's just say, because you said something about repair, and I want to revisit that just a little bit, because what about that parent who didn't get it right? You know what I mean? I think for me, well, look at me just throwing myself in it, but knowing those 5 years that I didn't get it right, short tempered, emotionally unavailable, like I'm a provider type parent naturally. Like, girl, that's easy for me. Like, I would do whatever I got to do to make sure
And
everything is done. But then that emotional availability was something that I lacked, to be quite frank. What about that parent who's like, man, I did not get it right? I was kind of deep into my own pain, and maybe they're getting some form of awakening just listening to you talk about it now. Because, like you said, you don't have to be perfect, um, because no parents perfectly, right? But how can we make space for repair? You know, if they feel like, what, maybe it's too late. What would you advise them to do to help kind of repair that relationship, if there's space to do so?
I don't think that it's very few instances where I would say, like, yeah, it's probably too late. Even parents of adult children,
Mm,
repair has to be the priority. And that's the hard part when you are, still parenting. You have so many other priorities. You have the priority of discipline. You have the priority of rearing and raising them. But when I started that journey, I had to look at repair as I'm in a safety deficit right now. Like, in terms of her feeling emotionally safe with me. And so I can't take behaviors personally. I have to be very intentional about how I respond to her dysregulation, because I have created an environment that, um, up until this point, has not served her emotional development, right? So you have to
yeah.
meet your child where they are, and you have to be willing to give them grace in that moment, because when we don't, we're creating more dissafety, right? We're creating more disharmony, more disconnection, and more ruptures.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is consistent accountability. Accountability is a continuous action. It's not just, well, I said sorry for the parent that I was.
Oh,
You
mm,
have to surrender consistent.
yeah.
That's hard. That is very, very hard to surrender consistently, but holding yourself accountable is what keeps the relationship safe.
Yeah.
And they need that level of safety from you. It really depends on what age they are, but I would almost say that you have to be okay with the fact that you may not be the only source for their healing.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
I had to be
Yeah.
okay with that. Like, there is a certain level of safety that my youngest has that my oldest does not have with me. I'm still the safest person, but when it comes to certain things, I'm like, it might be more effective for her to talk to her auntie about this right
Yeah.
now. I'm glad, she has a therapist. I'm glad she feels comfortable with her teachers. Like, you need them to have safe adults because that safety deficit, you're not always going to be the safe space while you're repairing and rebuilding and
Right.
restructuring. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so
No, absolutely.
it's important for your children to have other safe adults beyond you as well.
No, I love that because we think we're supposed to handle and take on everything, and number
That's
one, that's
normal.
impossible. That's impossible no matter what season you're in. But if you're unfolding and navigating a divorce, leaning on other people is probably more crucial than anything. And you said something about the adult children, which I don't want to skip that because why you so I don't want to skip that at all because you know, so I have a 12-week accelerated program and I've had women who had to go back and apologize to their children who are now adults for I believe it was very unintentional on the pain that they caused them when they were younger. And I love that you say the adult child because sometimes we just think minor kids, but there's a lot of there can be a lot of friction even with your adult children. How can parents navigate that now that their child is grown in terms of repair? Is it pretty similar? Um,
Yeah, absolutely. There's a deficit there
yeah,
in recognizing that I may not be a safe space for all things, and that is
yeah,
okay. And giving your child the space to acknowledge that and you respecting that. Like, there are certain boundaries I have, or my oldest daughter has with me that maybe my youngest daughter doesn't have with me, and
yeah,
respecting that. I think that that is very difficult a lot of times for adults or parents with adult children is respecting boundaries, is not associating shame and taking on shame when a child says, you did this or you did that. I'm constantly recognizing that a lot of times parents will hear, I didn't like this, and receive, I don't like you, or I didn't appreciate this, I don't appreciate you, and conflating behavior with character because that's how we were raised. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
or behaviors are you versus separating them. And so
Mhm.
they receive feedback in that way a lot of times. If I don't like something you did, that means I don't like you. Um, and it's hard to take accountability when you're experiencing shame. And so my number one piece of advice was you got to deal with the shame. If you get defensive when your child calls out a behavior, you probably have a shame wound, and that's not your child's to heal. Y'all are both adults. You need to be able to receive feedback. Receiving feedback doesn't mean that you agree or that you have to validate it, but it shouldn't feel like a personal attack for somebody to tell you how your behavior impacted them. Right? It's if we
Yeah.
go into the right or wrong, the good or bad, it's like that's not what this is about. Your
That's
child, not saying
right.
it's good or bad.
Mhm.
If they have the language for that, if your child comes to you and says, this hurts my feelings, or I don't like this, and you're hearing as you're good, you're bad, this is good or this is bad, that is a shame issue. So I definitely would process that first. That's definitely, I think, one of the most important things is being able to receive that feedback. And then also just the compassion piece of it
Yeah.
and the understanding and the grace piece of it. I just know so many people that are like, I just wish that when I shared that I'm hurt, that there was a pause where my parent responded to what I just said. Like, I just said that I'm hurt and you're more focused on why.
You.
On,
Yeah.
on you, right?
Or
On
yeah.
why. I
Mhm.
said, I'm hurt because you didn't call me on my birthday and you trying to explain why da, 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 you didn't do this. I led with, I'm hurt and you're my parent and I'm
Yeah.
not receiving any compassion or any empathy towards what I just said. So I think that those are two things. Number one, definitely recognizing and understanding our own shame and healing that. And then number two, increasing that level of empathy and compassion.
Mm. Ah, that's good. Um, For the parents who are co-parenting, that can be a lot of different dynamics. Some people are more collaborative, others aren't. And you may have different dynamics where maybe one parent may be more emotionally aware, more intentional, while the other one may be learning or just showing up in a whole different way. What advice would you offer to the parent who's trying to take the high road? um, the one who's trying to model that emotional safety for the child, even when the other parent isn't.
What advice would I give them in
Mhm.
regards to what?
Because,
How they
okay,
navigate
so I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
in regards to how they navigate what kind of situations?
Well, because when you are going between both homes and you may have that one parent that isn't as emotionally available to the children, they can be saying certain things, even about the parent or even directly to the children. Leaving that environment, coming home to this parent, being able to take that high road. And so my point is that for that parent who's just trying to not necessarily talk bad about the other parent or add more fuel to it, because when those kids come home they may say, well, mom or dad, this is what my other parent said, this, that, and the third. How do we handle things that we don't agree with? How do we manage that with these kids? Wow. I'm serious, girl. I listen. Co-parenting is no joke.
Yeah,
Some people have
no,
to
I mean,
parallel. Some people have to parallel parent. Everybody doesn't co-parent, but just the fact that both of these kids, these kids have both their parents in their life. They both love their children, their parents. But just being able to know, like, I'm probably more of the mature parent in this. Like, how do they handle that? How do they take the high road and all of that?
goes back to boundaries versus rules.
Okay.
And a lot of times our reactionary behavior is when we either don't have boundaries or we are not maintaining and respecting our own boundaries. Now, in some situations and circumstances, it can only be but so good because there's a portion of it that you're not in control of, right?
Hmm.
But if I'm not in control of my co-parent's behavior and I'm also not in control of my boundaries, then that's an even worse situation. So we just have to start there. What am I willing and not willing to do versus what am I trying to make the other person do, make the other person see? So based off of the circumstances, what is the most ideal level of peace possible? And what circumstances need to be happening over here in order for that to happen? I
I
need
like that question.
to
That's a
check
good
off those
question.
boxes, right?
Yeah.
I need to check off those boxes before I'm even looking at what's going on over there.
Yeah.
That's really hard because a lot of times, if we are a primary parent or if we are the most emotionally supportive parent, we're probably checking off, 10 of our 15 boxes, and we feel like they ain't checking out but two of theirs, right?
Yeah.
But asking myself, well, what can I control? I can control those other five. I can. I can control them a lot better than I can control, you
Yeah.
know, the 13 that they're not controlling. So for me, taking the high road is about making sure that I'm maintaining my boundaries. Maintaining the high road for me isn't about being polite. It's not about being cordial. It's not about falling on the sword. I'm not in that co-parenting camp. Okay.
Right.
I'm not making myself feel small to support anybody's ego or anything like that. That is not being collaborative because I think that in many ways that um, is a way that we build distrust with ourselves. Right. And that's a way that we dishonor ourselves. And at the end of the day, I got to be the best version of me when my kids are here with me. So I'm not going to dishonor myself. But if I'm not um, following all of my boundaries, I'll give you an example. Let's say you know that on your way home from work, if you call your co-parent, or on your way to get your kids, if you call your co-parent, that's going to impact your evening, right? And you still call your co-parents on the way to get your kids.
For real.
As you trying to take the high road and you're trying to talk through this and you need to explain this and you're trying to work through this conflict and problem solve, that is you dishonoring your boundaries That is you creating disharmony for your home, for the thing that you can control. And so I think that when it comes to that, we have to be willing to honor our boundaries first before we're trying to control the other person's behavior. Now, when it's impacting our kids, you ask that same question. There's an impact on my child. What is the route to the most possible level of peace? And what can I actually do? What am I in control of in creating that level of peace? Whether that is they came home and said, Daddy didn't play with me at all this weekend. Daddy never plays with me. That's going to stir up something in you, potentially, right?
Mama bear. Yeah.
Mama bear, right.
For real.
Right. And
Yeah.
so do you say, what's going to happen if I call Dad? Do we have the collaborative relationship where we're going to go, where this is going to go somewhere? Or am I going to be more dysregulated and now I have less capacity for play tonight?
Yeah.
It's frustrating that is the consistent decisions that a lot of us have to have the perspective of, and at the same time, that's what benefits our kids, and that's what benefits us, and that's what we're in control of.
That is such a good answer. I love that. It sounds good saying take the high road, and I love that you even said that you're not willing to dishonor yourself for the collaboration, because I think a lot of the time people give that advice and I'm like, I don't know if that's the right advice. I don't necessarily agree with that.
The high road.
Not in that regards, no, because if someone isn't collaborative, you have to take that into account, and you have to know how to manage that relationship differently, because co-parenting is collaboration. Which is why I tell people everybody can't co-parent. Some people have to literally parallel parent, because it just doesn't work well. And so I'm glad that you said that, because I think some people need to be released from thinking that that's what they're supposed to do, taking the brutal hits, the emotional abuse, the constant back and forth, all for the sake of the children. Now I know you do have to love your children more than the idea of you hating the parent.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, what parameters need to be set up? I love that. I shoot, girl, I wish I had you
That is
15 years ago.
that would
literally,
help me as
seriously.
well, because we do a lot of tone policing of ourselves sometimes,
Yeah.
and a lot of just policing our own behavior so that we look like the collaborative person. But collaboration is not just in tone. It is not just in tone. And if somebody is not willing to collaborate with you, the most collaborative thing that you can do for your child is manage yourself.
Yeah.
For me, that would be the equivalent of taking the high road. And so I maybe at the general definition of taking the high road, I don't always believe that. If that means turning the other cheek, or letting someone consistently disrespect you, or ignoring harm, that you're not gonna hear me say that.
No, I absolutely love that. You did a video that I wish I could have liked 1,000 times. And it was about the parent, the one who stayed. Let's talk about the parent who stayed, the parent who shows up every day, the parent who manages the appointments, handling the schoolwork, being the Uber driver, the Lyft driver, girl, making meals, therapist, going to doctor visits, the school functions, girl, navigating the emotions, maybe even carrying the full financial load. But they're the ones who getting the pushback from the child. Meanwhile, the other parent, who may not be present or as consistent, isn't on the receiving end of those same level of emotional resistance. And so how do you support the parent who feels like they're being punished for staying, or even being the consistent one? How can they navigate that dynamic in a way that just don't lead to burnout or resentment?
Well, number one, like I said earlier, having other safe adults that your child can go to and express those things. There'll be times where I'll text my friends like, "Hey, can you text your niece? Because I think I'm getting on her nerves."
I love that. For real, seriously.
Somebody to tell or talk to about it. And then number two is remembering that like that makes you the safe space. That's all it is. That just makes you the safe space. And like, I know my daughter, you know, I know my daughter in a way that if you aren't the primary parent,
Yeah.
you may not know your child. And
Yeah.
so I try to look at that from that perspective of the privilege and honor of being able to genuinely know my child, knowing how they think, how they feel, how they process things, because that means that I get to be a part of their healing journey. You know, our children
Yeah.
experience some sort of impact on a different spectrum when they
Yeah.
are going through a divorce, right? And so the fact that I get to be a part of her healing and processing the pain of that is important to me. And sometimes healing looks messy, and I'm going
It's
to be the
very.
one to see it. So I think it's important for us to not take it personal, and then also recognize that that level of gratitude that we want our children to have and perspective
Yeah.
comes with a fully developed frontal lobe that they do not have at this moment. So almost expect it to be a little irrational for them not to be able to piece together. My mom did this, and this, and this. And even though I'm upset, maybe I should control or manage my upset better and have that kind of perspective. Like, I just expect it. I expect those kinds of tantrums because their brains are developing. And I just try not to take it personal, because ultimately, when your child needs something,
They know.
they know
They know
who to
who the
call.
parent is.
And
Mhm.
it can be needing something tangible, like, why are you calling me asking me to DoorDash deodorant? But it can also be something emotional. And so
Yeah.
hold on to those moments and those signs that you are safety and that they appreciate you. Because if they didn't appreciate your parenting, you wouldn't be the person that they're coming to.
Mhm. And that's definitely a constant reminder because in the middle of it, you like it
Like, really? Why?
that head to the like, yeah, it's one right.
Right,
If
because
y'all
you're mad at the no that I gave you after 10 yeses, but you
Yeah.
won't even ask the other parent because you know
Yeah.
you're gonna get a no. Right, exactly. So
No.
having a place to process that as well is really important, whether that's a coach or a therapist. Like, the disappointment and the anger or the disgust or whatever you feeling towards your child when they are responding that way is valid as well. And if you don't have a place to process it, then you're gonna make it your child's job and role to process it.
I like that because I think a lot of the time we feel guilty or wrong for feeling that way. Because again, being this perfect parent, you shouldn't feel that way because that's your child. And I'm glad you said that because those feelings be real as a parent. I definitely experienced some things like that some years ago. Um, and it was hurtful. Like, but unfortunately, I feel like sometimes parents don't get that type of grace to have those feelings because, well, that's your child. Why would you feel that? And I'm like, do you not know what this person just said to me? You know what I'm saying? So no, I'm glad that you said that because I think people need to understand the importance, or parents need to understand the importance of having that place for themselves to be able to work through those current feelings that they're having.
Well, because if
No,
not, it's
yeah,
gonna come out in our behavior. You can't regulate an
absolutely.
emotion that you aren't willing to acknowledge and express. So if you are disgusted with what they just said to you, it may not come out in this moment, but the parent that you are is nowhere near the parent you could be if you had a safe space to say, I was disgusted with my child. I was angry. I was feeling rage, or I was feeling embarrassed or shame, whatever the emotion is.
Oh, I love that. Um, One of the things that I was reading that you had on your page is about community and and having sisterhood and all those things. And there was a post where you talked about losing your mom in 2016,
Mhm.
and at that time it was just you and your oldest daughter. Then and then shortly after you got pregnant again and you end up becoming a single parent again. And you said, I almost broke without the love and support from the person that I needed the most. And that was your mom. And it was something else that you mentioned. And that was you remembered how your mom got through herself. And that was the support of other women. Um, And I think for so many moms, especially for those maybe carrying the full parental load, not by choice, but by circumstance, maybe the other parent isn't there or not as involved. Maybe there's been constant disappointment over time or even a lack of follow through. Hard to trust others. So it creates this narrative that I don't need anybody. I got to do it all on my own. It turns into hyper independence. That becomes the new normal. So, and needing support is almost seen as a weakness as opposed to a strength. And so, how did community and sisterhood play a role in your journey to thriving? And I want to be clear about thriving because anybody can survive on their own, but thriving is a different type of strategy. And so, how did that play a role in you thriving? And how can mothers begin to allow themselves to receive that kind of support as well?
I always like to say, because I'm a very strong, independent woman, and I came from a line of strong, independent women, and so it is hard to even receive that message of like you need help. But I would always say you don't need help, honestly, because you've been doing it. Like, you're figuring it out. You don't need help. You deserve help. Like, can we just land on that?
Mm,
You deserve help. Help is
I
nice.
like that. Yeah.
Obviously, you don't need it because you're gonna figure it out, but you deserve it. And I think that when we land on that, it's a lot different than feeling like it's a deficit, right? That's number one. Number two, I saw my mom do so many things, and I didn't realize that it was because of community. Um, and so she had her best friends and my grandmother and like people from church and all of these things as well. She had both. And I did not necessarily have both, or I wasn't leaning on both, because I didn't feel like I deserved help, because I didn't necessarily, outside of my mom, I didn't really receive help. So I didn't think like I deserve, that kind of help or support. Um, and so I think that it's important for us to move into the space of like, no, like my kids deserve community. And when we
Yeah.
see who our children are in community and who
Hmm.
we show up as in community, it's like, no, my children deserve me, that can call somebody and be like, oh, I'm not gonna make it. Can you hurry up and grab them from school or something? Like,
Yeah. For real. Yeah.
that version of me versus the version that is having to cancel this or change this and move it all fast to make it work. That's not what they deserve. Again, you don't need them to pick somebody to pick them up. You'll figure it out, but you deserve to be able to pick your child up from that person feeling calm, feeling less rushed. Like, right, your child deserves to see you in that light and see you in that way. So I think it's just starting to shift that narrative and perspective of you're not at a deficit. There's not something wrong with you by asking for help. It is actually just better for you and better for your kids.
Mm. Oh, that's good. Let's talk about finding the joy in motherhood real quick. Um, Something that I've been noticing. I don't know if you've been noticing this too, but I even think this even I hear it from even married women outside of just being single mothers are speaking about the weight of motherhood. Like, and the truth is that the responsibility's always been there, but I think the conversations have become more open and honest around it. But at the same time, I also see a lot of women who are in survival mode, burnt out by all the demands, where the joy of motherhood is very minimal, if not just totally missing altogether. They're doing it all, but they're not feeling connected to it. And so I know you have two babies, you're in school, you're doing a lot of things. Like, how do you find the joy in motherhood? And what would you say to the mom who loves her children? Because this is not about you not loving your kids. Because I hate when people think when you say this, you're saying, excuse me, that you don't love your kids. You love your kids, but maybe you having difficulty enjoying the journey of motherhood. Like, she's present, but her presence feel very stretched. It feels very thin. Um, they're embodied, but maybe not in spirit to some degree. Like, how can she reconnect to just finding that joy in motherhood?
We are, again, it goes back to being autonomous beings. And if our needs as individuals are not met, we're not going to have the level of well-being that is required to enjoy something that is difficult. it's just
Right.
it just is what it is. There are moments and pockets where parenting isn't difficult, And at the same time, it's a responsibility. Just like you can love your job, you can, love exercising, whatever, something that requires discipline and is difficult. And at the
Mhm.
same time, if your basic human needs are not being met, it's going to be very difficult to enjoy that. And for some of us, it's very difficult to do it at all, right? And so that's important for me. I have to make sure that my survival needs are met, number one, when it comes to, just physiologically sleeping, eating. I feel like we take those things for granted.
For sure.
And it 9 times out of 10 is probably, what do they say, like the 80-20
Yeah.
situation is 20% of the tasks on our list would make 80% of the difference.
Yeah.
And if I lined up 10 moms that are saying it's hard, I could guarantee you the majority of them are not sleeping or
Doing the basics, the
not
basic needs.
not
Yeah.
the basics. Exactly, right.
Mhm.
And trying all the self-care things, but skipping the basics. And so I think that that's number one. Autonomy is another basic human need. And so if we are doing all of the things for another person, then we're not meeting that need. If we don't have boundaries around bedtime because we want our kids to be happy and we're going through the divorce and we just one more book, one more book, one more book, one more book. And then it's 11 p.m. and you're exhausted and you're draining, you have any time for yourself, you're going to show up differently as a mom. You're not going to be enjoying this. And so I think it's important to look at those basic needs, community, self-actualization, us actually pursuing things that make us better as individuals. These are not just things that help. These are things that we need in order to enjoy our life, have a specific level of well-being. And if we're ignoring them for our children, then we're actually doing them a disservice.
Mhm. I love that. It kind of reminded me of a video you posted about the power of and.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that I don't have to just be the mom who sacrificed. They deserve a mom who models what it means to actually thrive. Um,
And means saying no, though, sometimes. And
oh,
that's
100%. I think that's part of thriving, right? Being able, honoring your no, is very important as well. But just I think a lot of the time the programming of thinking that's all we're here for as moms is to be just completely self-sacrificial, where there's no room to say, okay, I can be a good mom and be a woman who takes care of my needs. Like I think sometimes we think it's a either or and not a both and. We tend to leave that out
yeah.
a whole lot.
Well, the challenge with that, though, is that our kids aren't just seeing us be a mom, they're seeing us be women.
Right. Yes. Absolutely.
They're seeing us show them what it means to be a woman. And if there's no and, then they grow up not knowing how to thrive as a woman, as a person, how to take care of themselves.
Mm,
So we have to have that. Like, I want my kids to see me get dressed to go hang out with my friends. I
right.
want them to see me say, hey, no, like, I'm actually going to finish this chapter in my book. I
Right.
want them
No,
to see me
seriously.
have hobbies and have a good time and kiki with my friends and develop
Mhm.
myself. And no, I'm going to sit down and eat. You can go get seconds. You see me feed.
No, that
You
is
know what I'm
so
saying?
important. No, that's why my eyes got big. Like it's really just that small, and the fact that women feel guilty
I
of
never saw my
just
mama eat.
doing that.
I never see her eat. I never saw her eat.
Right.
She would cook and be doing the dishes while we eating.
As opposed to just yeah, and
Take
it's
care of
something.
yourself.
No, that's good. It's something just as simple as that. Um,
You need
I
some
see.
hobbies, all of that stuff. Before my mom
Yeah.
passed away and she was about to like get laid off from her job, her government job that she had forever, and they were doing layoffs. And I'm like, "Mama, like, you already retired from the military. Like, you good. You gonna have time to just do you." And she just, my strong GI Jane mama, just broke down because she was
Mm,
like, I don't know. What am I? I don't know who I am without my job.
yeah.
I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that really showed me that the other side of like it's in the word, it's self-sacrifice. Like you are
Yeah.
literally sacrificing you and who
Yeah.
you are. And who you are is the best possible version for your kids to see. When you tap into your hobbies, your community, your interests, your own personal joy in healing, your kid seeing that version of you is going to shock and surprise you with how the relationship is and with how much you actually enjoy motherhood. You can't enjoy motherhood if you don't enjoy womanhood. You can't separate the two.
Yeah.
Cannot separate the two.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I see that you were recently featured on a new show titled Motherhood. First of all, congratulations. That
Thank
is
you.
huge. I was like, okay. I saw your post. I saw that they aired the first episode May the 5th.
Yep.
And so what is the show about?
It's a transformation show about single mothers. And so we
Mm.
went and we spent 6 weeks with these single mothers. Connie Britton, this is her brainchild. She came up with this concept and we worked with the producers of Queer Eye. And so it's myself, and I specialize in parenting. And then we have a style expert as well as a home expert. But it was really just about building community. Of course, we help them. I help them with parenting and the other experts help. But we also were intentional about creating community and they spent time together. They still are in community in contact with each other. And it's on Hallmark.
Ah, did you enjoy the filming of it all?
I did not enjoy being away from my babies. I did not enjoy that part.
Aw.
Well, other than the autonomy was at almost 100 at that point. So I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
But that was very difficult. But working with the moms was such a treat and such a pleasure. And also being able to be a part of showcasing single mothers in a different light. And not this light of you need help, but you deserve help. And like, no, it's okay. I'm gonna sit here while we talk and I'm gonna fold your laundry. Being able to almost because they have bought into the process. So being able to say, like, no, actually, you have to let me help you. Right. It's something I wish I could have did with my mom. And so it was really nice to be in a situation in a setting where I just got to support people that really, really, really deserve it and don't see how amazing it like single moms. I'm like, we literally can do all of the things. And a lot of times, because of society, we have the most shame around who we are as parents. And I'm like, 9 times out of 10, single moms are the best parents, the most equipped. If anybody should be feeling bad about how they show up as parents, 9 times out of 10 is not the ones that are doing it, doing the job of two, or, where there's an imbalance, or even just not having another parent in the house. I always say that even if you have a co-parent, when you're in the house, it's only two adult hands. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
it was just a really fun experience to be able to kind of combat that stigma a little bit and show like these parents are amazing and they are thriving. They just need a little bit of help.
I love that. We all need the help. I love that. I know we talked about a lot today. What's one piece of advice or maybe a small tangible step you will offer to the mom who wants to start parenting more intentionally but doesn't know where to begin? Something simple, something they feel like is like a quick micro win that they can build that momentum of stepping into this new stage of just being more intentional with their children in terms of parenting.
Mm. First step that I always love to encourage parents to do is to check in, ask a hard question, and just go to your child and ask them how you're doing. How am I doing as a mom?
Whew, I asked that question too, girl. That thing right there.
Ask that
I
question. And I
yeah.
appreciate that practice because number one, it gives you feedback. And then number two, you get to practice intentionally regulating your emotions and intentionally actively listening and intentionally not giving feedback and just accepting what they say. So you're going to ask your child, how am I doing as a mom? It's okay. Be honest. I'm just going to hear what you say. I'm not going to correct you. I'm not setting you up for an argument. I just want to hear. And they share and you breathe and you count the 10 in your head and you smile and nod and you just say, thank you for sharing.
Ah, I love that. Very small and simple and achievable. That's exactly what. So for those who listening, take her advice and do that and just listen. Not even to respond, but just to listen, get that feedback. Any final thoughts or words that you have on your heart? Maybe for mothers who are listening to you and they like, girl, I'm overwhelmed, I'm uncertain, I'm tired, girl. Is there anything you would like to just leave them with?
Yeah, this may be hard to receive. You may have to sit with it and challenge it, but you are the most important person in the parent-child relationship. In your relationship with your child, you are the most important person. You have to take care of yourself. And by taking care of yourself, your children are much more likely to thrive. That is the gift that I wish that I could have told my mom. Your needs right now are more important than mine. And if you take care of those first, you got to be able to take care of mine so much better.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love that. That's good. How can people find Miss Destini Ann?
It is Destini Ann everywhere. Destiny with an I, DSTINI, ANN on all of the socials and website as well.
Yes, and I will put everything down in the show notes. Your book, Very Intentional Parenting. You all follow her for her tips, her advice, buy her book, watch the show.
Yeah.
Like Destiny, you are a powerhouse. I think you're bringing such a refreshing perspective to parenting, especially in our community. I mean, we were taught. It was just some things we were taught different. You know what I mean? I'm not. It's not blaming. It's not pointing a finger. I think our parents, a lot of us, our parents were in survival. A lot of things they were taught and they just unconsciously passed it down. And I do think quite a few of them did the best that they honestly could. But that doesn't mean that we can't do better as well. Take the torch and evolve. And that's very important. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. It is amazing. I think you're challenging us. You're causing us to be like, what's she talking about? I don't like, but listen, that's telling us something. Cause I be seeing some of them comments too.
Yes.
And I'm like, whoo, honey, people but you have to just stop and listen, without getting defensive and just taking it in. And even if you are, that's still telling you something. So I appreciate you and the work that you do. Continue to keep doing what you do. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You take care and you have a good rest of your day.
You.
Thank you. Bye bye.